It's about Jack the Ripper, but it's about life. I mean, it's
Yeah. Hi, Shelley.
Hi
Today we're talking about From Hell,
from
the Master
hell.
Edition, and then the
The
slightly superior.
deluxe, the deluxe edition that's not in color. I don't know what it's called, to be honest. I'm not going to put you through that either. But it's a signed edition.
I think it's a collector's edition on Goodreads. That's how it's shelved.
Oh, I did not know that. So
Wow.
thank you. Yes, it is some sort of edition.
Yes. And it's
Yeah.
Alan Moore
Alan Moore,
and Eddie Campbell.
And Eddie Campbell. When was it published? Do you know?
90 something. Well, this version, my version, is 2020.
This is 1999. First publishing collected trade edition, 1999.
Yeah. Mine says 1989, 1999, 2021. So I don't know. Anyway, it's around then.
Oh, no, you're right.
Yeah.
1989. Yeah, 1989. So it's been out for a while, for a hot minute.
Yeah.
This is an aged book right here.
Yeah. It's classic. It's a classic. I like saying that just to piss people off.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
because
you're gonna wait, this is on your channel, right? So I don't have to
yeah. Like, Fraser, shut up. Don't say classic around here. But in a book, or no, in a car context, a car becomes a classic after 15 years for insurance purposes. So that's why I always say that to people. I'm like, I think this book is a classic now. And people are like, do not say that. But I think it is. No, I'm just kidding. I think it could be like a modern classic though. It's pretty good. PG. No?
PG. Well, let's get into the synopsis. So what is this about?
Yeah. So this book is about, as far as I can tell, and I'm fairly smart, I think, like to think, it's about historical fiction that is slightly ahistorical, with Alan Moore proposing who could have killed the women. There. I have to go the opposite direction of what I think it is. The Jack the Ripper case in London. But it's also highly historical in that it's giving the context of London to the people consuming it, I think, as well. So if you're expecting solely Jack the Ripper, I think you'll be sorely mistaken, really. It's very character focused, and I would say in a sort of, I hate saying this, but I think London is a character. The place is also
saying that.
Well, just because I think people say that about a lot of books that where it doesn't actually pertain, but I think this one does. It goes into like the actual history a lot.
The rant really kind of made that true. There was a rant in this.
Yeah.
And there's a chapter in which basically it is a monologue rant from someone who may not be all there. And that's where London really feels like a character for sure. Yeah. It's not the most pleasant rant, but
Yeah. Well, yeah, this book is not what I would call overall pleasurable. I mean, I had fun reading it, but I was like, she's dark. So. Yeah. And so this book is purporting that a actual historical figure, William Gull, might have been the Jack the Ripper killer with help of a lot of stuff. Basically his privilege, his education as a doctor, and his secondary privilege, I guess, of being in the Masonic Lodge at a very high place and thus very connected and able to get away with things. And then secondarily, he was able to get away with this stuff with inadvertent help of the press and misinformation and like the man, myth, and legend, I guess, that erupted from the Jack the Ripper case. Really? Is that a good synopsis?
That's a good synopsis.
Cool. I think I'm going to put this down.
Yeah, I was going to say you should just put it down because it'll probably just say like from hell to square, like discussion or something.
Oh yeah, that's true. But people really want to see the cover, even though it's not the best cover, I would say.
No, it's not. I don't think the art is the best. I guess it's something we could talk about. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say that Alan Moore tells a very compelling yet he tells like a very well researched and compelling narrative of what could have been Jack the Ripper. And he uses multiple storylines in order to investigate this theory, and then the book explodes. So I mean, that's my synopsis in like 3 sentences.
Much better than mine. Like, there's this and this, and then this and this and this. Yeah. Okay. So they have the synopsis, I think. So, okay. So spoiler-free discussion now, and we will make sure to be explicit when the spoilers are coming. Although in some way, I think it's like almost one of those like unspoilerable things, right? Because everybody generally knows the crimes of Jack the Ripper. And then this is sort of like, this guy did it, and you're either on board with that or not. But anyway, we will do a non-spoiler thing. So yeah, what are your high thoughts, like what initially comes to you about the book immediately when you think about it?
From an experience perspective, like I didn't know too much about Jack the Ripper, but obviously, the sort of general story of him being a murderer of women who use their bodies for work. And so even knowing that story, I thought I wouldn't be surprised, or I wouldn't have felt any kind of tension, because you can kind of see where the story is going. And even though you can see the story where the story is going, it is like the experience was like a thriller or a horror movie, and you're just like, don't go in there. It's like, it, but then you're watching it and you can't look away. That was kind of like the top of mind experience, that even though the story was familiar, I still found it like full of tension and surprises.
Would you say it's fast paced?
Yes. I don't think any part of it, I never got to a point in the book where I was like, I'm tired and I don't want to read this anymore. I always we read about 2 chapters a day. And so I always read what we read, and then was ready for more. So that was like good pacing on my part. But I don't know if I would have just read it all the way through, if I would have got to a point where I was like, I'm done, or I'm tired. And then I kept going. So I think I paced my reading out well with this book as well.
Yeah, I don't think I
What about you?
I don't think I would have read it right through. It's quite big. Mine is 565 pages, I think. Something like that, with both appendices counted, I believe.
Oh, you know what? Every chapter in this is all self-contained. Yeah. So every chapter starts back at 1. So I don't know. But our paneling should be the same, because graphic novels are formatted in a way that all of this version should have that.
Do you have the second appendix? The
one that's like this?
Yes, I guess you do.
Yes.
Yeah. This thing right here.
There you go. The
yeah, exactly.
Dance of the goal catchers. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we should have the exact same amount of pages, basically.
Oh, okay. So
565, but you probably might have one or more, because you have that specific page that's signed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So give or take.
Oh, did I show you this? I know. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He drew it.
Printed in Canada. What? Love it. No wonder it's the best version. So I'm curious, did you feel like you would have liked it more with color? Because I sent you a few pictures and stuff like that, but it's kind of hard to tell which is pictures. But do you think the color would have augmented the experience for you, I guess?
I don't know, because the point, I was really just compelled by Alan Moore's writing, and that's what I was going in for it for. So I think the color version would have probably been nice to look at, but I don't know if it would have made that much of a difference, considering that the reason why I'm reading it is for the language.
Right.
So yeah.
So overall, what would you how would you explain the art to somebody else who was picking it up? Would you be like, just come for more, you know?
How would you explain the art?
I thought it was really cool. Initially, I sort of dismissed it. I think we had that same sort of predilection at the beginning. But I do think that as you read it, the artistry comes out much more. Like there's some very subtle and kind of ingenious paneling that happens. There's a lot of like sketch work that shifts into some like legitimately really detailed, excellent work that happens. And so it was kind of like he's sort of like pay attention to these things, but not these things, which I think is excellent. And it fit the tone because it's very like dark and sketchy and sort of just fit the vibes really well.
I think like if people don't know what the art looks like, I guess that's, you know, it is, I would say like it is probably, it's pen and ink, and so you're gonna immediately get like Edward Gorey vibes just because it's like ink on paper, and he's using like crosshatch in order to do most of his shading work. And so yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's messy. I mean, I still feel like I wish there was another artist that would have done the work.
Yeah.
So that the art would have been more compelling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, it definitely isn't like amazing. But I would say that with the color, there was some pretty ingenious uses of it again. Like I sent you that panel with that kid erupting from the tunnel out of the darkness. And then when it was contrasted so vibrantly with like the sky and all the things happening, I was just like, wow, this was like really cinematic in my head. Like it's exactly what would happen in a movie, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then whenever it would rain, it would wash out the color.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah. So there's a few things like that. And I kind of just liked the actual colors chosen. Like it was very like distinctive and like, I don't know, gave it a lot of personality that it might have lacked in black and white. So I'm glad that I got the color version, but then also sad I don't have the collector's edition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all dark where I was at. I mean, it was like dark and gloomy and sad.
Yeah.
I mean, when color erupted, it was just like, oh, the page is white now. I mean,
yeah.
you know, because that's or not. It's just, but yeah, no, it's real dark all up in there. Eddie Campbell likes to keep it dark.
Yeah.
I've also heard that Alan Moore works really intensely with his artists. And so when there is paneling changes and when there is intricacies and details, or even when there is paneling that tells more of the story than the language can articulate, I have heard that it's Alan Moore working with the artist in order to use the medium of graphic novel in the best way possible. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
So it's a really close collaboration.
That makes sense to me. I remember even in the appendice, they said, he mentioned that he wanted to get such intricate London happenings and like a map and stuff. And in the note, it thanks Neil Gaiman for going to the local library and photocopying those things and mailing it to him. So it was intense about the research, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't think that he would just be like, here's my manuscript, now draw for it. Like,
yeah.
Like, I would like it to be like this, and I want it to look like this.
Yeah. I bet Eddie comes to the party and he's just like, okay, here are your, manuscript of 12 pages for the first page that you're gonna draw. Oh.
For panel, I've indicated how I want my characters placed and what I want in the background, and like, I could just imagine it being really intense.
Yeah, as somebody who's purchased art and given a lot of art direction, you definitely need a good relationship with an artist to do that, because they will hate you. Like, just let me do what I'm going to do is usually how they want it to be. Instead of like, this obelisk needs to be perfect. Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah.
So what other thoughts did you have about it, if any?
Well, do you think we can shift to spoiler rant, like spoiler chat?
I'll say one more thing before that then.
Okay.
So I think it's important that people expecting this to be like a really frenetically paced off to the get-go with Jack the Ripper. Make sure that you know that it's Alan Moore and that it's like a slow burn up to that actual inciting incident. Like we get a whole bunch of historical context and context around a lot of different characters, a lot of buildup, a lot of anticipation. I don't even think there was a murder until like halfway in, right? At least a quarter.
I feel like that's a spoiler.
Oh, really? Okay, we're in spoilers now. I feel it's just like the structure, though. It's important to know that, like, for instance, when I picked it up, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be the story about Jack the Ripper. That's all I know. And then it's sort of like, 30 years or something before the murders take place in the very beginning. And it leads up to it very slowly in a character
so
kind
was
of thing.
So was it a slower burn for you, Fraser?
I didn't.
Than you anticipated?
Yeah, like when I characterized it in Storygraph, I think I put it as a slow paced book. But I liked that. Like I liked the immersion and I really liked everything about it. So I never really know how to classify pacing, because if it's done right, it always feels like it's the correct pace anyway. I almost never realize if it's slow or fast paced, and I almost always just put medium pace because I'm like, it was the pace that it was and it was good.
Yeah, you can I think use the balance between character development and plot points, and or like development of setting your exposition, right? Your characters, your setting, what's going on, the plot, and then the difference between like when that happens and then when something like takes off, I guess. But it's hard to tell and like where in the book that happens. But I don't know. I saw it super clearly with the Iliad, and that's why I think I hailed that book so high, because I was like, oh, he like literally spent 16 chapters building to a very specific moment, and then from there it was like action, 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 and we're done. So I don't know. But this book, yeah, it was like, now that you've said it, it has the same slow burn structure. And then it seems like there's like right at the climax, right at the like 65% mark, you get like a big climax, a big reveal, and then from there it's the falling action. But that's kind of like a normal pace of a book. But he spends a lot of time developing. He's not like giving you plot points a bunch. He's like developing who people are and what they're doing in their world and how they function.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just my expectations as a comic book reader, where it's like, oh, this is like literary fiction, comic book novel thing that it's happening, instead of like a mostly comics don't do that. They just like pop right off, the inciting incident is like right away, mostly because they just don't have that many pages. But
yeah,
in a structure like this, especially because it's serialized, I was unsure how it was going to be, because serialized usually is kind of like immediate, right? Like Great Expectations kind of thing, where he's like, keep reading. Like I've got stuff happening every chapter there's something wild happening, and you're like, you can tell this is serialized. And Sherlock Holmes and just stuff like that. So this is clearly like Alan Moore can do whatever he wants, and he does that. He's just like, I'm gonna do what I want, and you can publish it if you want, kind of deal.
Yeah. From that perspective, it makes sense. For me, I'm like, I think you commented on the serialization far more than I did, because I was just like, it's reading like a normal novel. This is wonderful.
yeah.
Literary fiction. Here I am. Like, yes, I left the format, and yet I'm still here. Like, but so maybe that was the difference.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I really enjoyed it either way, wherever I would land on it. But I was surprised, I remember, because when I went to do the review in Storygraph, it was specifically marked predominantly fast-paced. And I was like, oh, I would think, even my brother, he started reading this and he DNF'd it because he thought it was like boring and not much was happening. Because the first quarter, there's just like, maybe he was just like, is someone going to get stabbed or what? I don't know. He didn't say that. I'm just saying, if you're waiting for that, It's later.
But I guess, like, again, I think it's just like contrast. I think our expectations. I think you're probably far more well read in, like, serialized graphic items. And I'm like, great. Like, this is not a change at all.
Yeah. Well, you've consumed a lot of graphic novels, where I've consumed a lot of, like, what I would characterize more as comic book. And they have 6-issue arcs typically, that will, like, have self-contained stories, but with a larger arc happening. And this was not that. This was
the fact that you even know that, like, you just read this so much more.
Yeah, well,
than I have.
It's just what happens when you grow up and your dad's a nerd and he buys you comics, I think. Also, okay, so we're squarely in the spoilers. So
are we in the spoilers? Yeah.
I'll put up a sign before I say, like, nobody gets got until a while, because I think you were right. I guess well, for me, if it's a structural thing, it just doesn't feel like a spoiler for some reason. I don't know. Like, you should expect it to be parceled out like that. Doesn't feel like a spoiler, but I don't know. I see you judging me, Shelley. Okay.
I'm judging you.
I really liked, though, in this book too, all of the occultish Masonic stuff, and I think you had a different reaction to it than me, right?
I'm like, these Mason guys are showing up again. I saw you in War and Peace.
Yeah.
I saw you in War and Peace. Now you're here, and I'm like, get away. Like, I don't want to. I don't know. It just doesn't. It doesn't excite me at all. Like, I'm not interested in that topic at all. So when it showed up, I was like, ah. So,
yeah. You weren't interested in learning why there's a bunch of phalluses in the sky?
No. Actually, I tried to forget that basically immediately. I was like, erase it from my memory.
Yeah.
The worst part of that book. New lens, not picking that up ever.
But I think we were both interested in the mysticism angle of it, right? Like, the sort of magical proponents.
Well, it seemed to me that there was a Masonic kind of vein of the whole story, but it was just mostly that there were, like, government people behind the scenes pulling strings. That didn't interest me. But then there's, like, a mythic level, and the mythicness, that I was all about that. I was like, what is happening here? So, yeah. So
would it be safe to say that the most interesting aspects of the book for you were, like, meta aspects of it?
Yeah, I think I was more interested in the way that, like, what Alan Moore was talking about because if y'all didn't know, because we're in the spoiler section.
Yeah.
It's about Jack the Ripper, but it's about life. I mean, it's about lying to ourselves and fiction, and what is it like? It's about so much. And so, yeah, I was far more interested in what Alan Moore had to say about the way that we think about history and the way that we tell stories and what stands out and the way that we spin narratives. And I think that he has really unique perspective about that. And then it was like he was taking you through the motions as he was also blowing your mind, He was like, I'm going to blow your mind. And then I'm going to, like, and then at the end, I'll be like, your mind was blown. See? And you're like, oh.
Excellent. This dish
I guess I shouldn't be talking about the experience in such abstract terms, but,
Well, no, I think that's fine. Yeah, like, I feel like the plot is kind of beside the point, and that's why I think overall I have this image where I'm like, can it be spoiler when it's mostly about these ideas being given to the reader? Like, like, I didn't expect Jack the Ripper to kind of be like an ideologue, and so, like, when he starts getting into those aspects, then it becomes really interesting for me, because I think if it had just been like, and then the murders happened and nobody knows who Jack the Ripper was, you'd be like, okay, neat. Yeah, I feel like he just used the Jack the Ripper story in order to tell a narrative that he wanted to tell. And then the Jack the Ripper story, not only did he just sort of take that, but it was well researched and it was really well put together and it was really entertaining. But then he just used that as a vehicle to tell
the readers about like a bigger narrative or a bigger idea that he was exploring. And that was the best part of the book, I think.
Mm-hmm. So what is that thing that, like what what did you get out of it, I guess?
Oh, what did I get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
I sort of felt like he was saying that we have these ideas about what but see, I feel like you already said this, so then now I feel like I'm just parroting you.
No, did I say that?
Like, there are truths that we think that we know for sure, and Alan Moore, in like a bigger way, is saying that sometimes maybe stories are more compelling to us and more understandable than the truth, and that the truth of something really just depends on your vantage point and the way that you want to see it. And then he, in the act of saying in the way that you want to see it, he kind of tears up his own story in a way, and then throws it all away. And so that experience was really interesting. And thinking about, what we think is real and true as part of our like cultural identities even, and knowing that those are just stories as well, and being able to consider that for a moment.
Yeah. I wonder if I can't remember if it's in the appendix or in the actual like proper story.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a part where he says fiction becomes fact and fact becomes fiction, and it's like this cyclical thing that we go through with the stories that we tell each other. So really doing a Jack the Ripper story for him was like simply the fun of participating in
Mm-hmm.
that like cultural mythos or something.
Mm-hmm.
And him saying like a deconstruction basically of like the mystery thriller crime thing, where he's just like, it's hubris to think that because we have these codified things like motive, opportunity, and like means or whatever, that we know everything that happened, and that's sort of how we codify it these days. And so if we just take to heart that we don't really know any of these things, then the genre itself becomes only a mode of like participating in the fiction, and that's all it is, and that's all it can ever be. And I think he was saying that like Jack the Ripper story kind of was the progenitor of all of that stuff, and that's why he like went back into history to do something like that. So it was fascinating. And then the granularity of the appendix was just I was just like, oh my god, Alan, you need to calm down. Like, how long did it take you to research all this stuff? Because it really becomes like almost hyper reality or something, where he's just like, so much of this is the buttressing of it is true, yet it's demonstrably fake with many things, and then
and that's an interesting part of the fiction as well, is that there is this really strong sense of truth, like notes, facts, this idea that there is truth woven into the narrative, and then there is like inextricably things that are absolutely 100% made up, and then trying to like get that right in your brain is also kind of an interesting exercise for a reader.
Yeah, he also talks about marrying ideas too, where like throughout history, this writer purported that this character, well, not character, but like this actual historical picture person that became a character in the book, this person has the conjecture that they're like this, and then this person thought maybe they're like this, and I was just like, I'll combine it, and they're both. And I was like, oh snap, okay, well, so it is really just him thinking of fiction in a much more meta sense than what I ever could have imagined, basically, where he's just like, all of it is fiction anyway, so I don't really like, historical fact is controlled by a narrative anyway, so I might as well be doing that.
Yeah. But yet he's still like, even though he had that mindset, he still did his research and still got close to what the public consciousness sees as Jack the Ripper and the facts out there about the story. And it's like he used that, but then he was like, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff too.
Yeah. Time to get metaphysical.
Since it's spoilers, it's like, hell is unleashed, y'all. Okay. Like, okay.
Yeah. It's not Old Yeller, it's Old Heller. Oh, what a stupid joke. Enjoy that, y'all. Oh yeah, and then the last appendix was really cool because it's just the evolution of the Jack the Ripper fiction from like start to finish.
Oh, I should probably read that.
It's pretty interesting. It is granular to the point where you're kind of like, and I'm skimming now. I'm skimming. But it is interesting.
Let's just get through this. Yeah.
Oh, and another thing that one of my all-time favorite things about it too is the fiction with the fact marriage thing that he's doing also manages to condemn imperialism, the crown. Like transphobic people, people who are prejudiced, racist. Like it just goes all
he's
in
just
on
like critique.
Yeah.
Like, oh god.
He's like,
geez, Alan Moore.
He's like, a fun thing about London is it was trash. These people are trash. And I'm gonna just be like telling you they're trash all the time.
I learned, I was like, I don't want to piss Alan Moore off because he will destroy me.
Yeah.
Not that we're friends, y'all, but in some sort of hypothetical situation. Yeah. What would you rate this?
I gave it 5 out of 5 stars.
Oh, really?
Yeah. To the max.
Okay. It was that good? It was that impressive?
Yeah. I mean, even the parts that other people said were boring were riveting to me because I kind of wanted historical fiction to do that, to tell me about the historical figures, the like cultural moment of the time,
the setting, the cultural
setting, all that kind of stuff. And then because it's visual, it's even better for me. I was just like, yes, all of it. I'm getting all of the things.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
What did I don't rate things.
Yeah, I tried to bait you.
Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Who would I recommend this to? That's usually what I do. I don't know. I mean, I guess so. I didn't know. I didn't realize that's what I did until I said it right now. I mean, to people who are interested in graphic novels, this is a truly unique experience. I don't know if everybody who is a reader or everybody who's just interested in reading would love this, but I think those who are particularly interested in like what graphic novels can do. And then also if you're like kind of horror curious, like you're curious about horror, this is a good medium because this is like the second sort of horrifying thing that I've read and it hasn't bothered me. So
excellent. All right. Well, I think that's it.
Yes.
And I hope you enjoyed our reviews.
Our discussion,
From Hell.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
From Hell.
Well, it's a review too.
Is it?
I think so. I gave a star rating. It counts.
Doesn't count.
And thank you for being on my channel.
Yeah, thanks for having me
again. Okay, well, see you, Shelley. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.